Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Adrian. We're back into another video, and today we'll be talking about how sophisticated market could still be dominated and have a really good brand that I can show you that this is doing really well on that. The issue is with most ecom founders is that they think one creative is all you need to scale and be successful forever, right? But there's going to come to points where you hit bottlenecks, right? You hit barriers where your creatives start fatiguing, and no matter what you keep throwing, it's not working. So you need to understand it's not always about creatives, but creatives are super important, right? We always say, yeah, winning creatives, not winning products. But you also need to understand that if a market becomes sophisticated, it's going to be time where you start introducing new mechanisms. First brand on a specific product can make a promise, right? They have the leverage, but the second brand going to make bigger promises, right? The third brand is going to make bigger promises on the offer. So the audience that is buying these products, right? They come to a point where like, okay, it's not working, right? They're already aware of it. They've tried it. It doesn't work. And they've gone to this loop where like, okay, you know what? It's not going to work for me. I'm not going to buy this product from the next brand. So that's when the next brand that's, coming in the market, selling the same product, you have to have a different mechanism going into it. So we're looking at K18 brand, right? These guys are targeting hair growth product, right? And the main thing and the thing is, the old desire for a product like this would be women want healthy hair, stronger hair, right? They want to have hair, they want hair growth, right? Claim is really repair, strengthen, reduce breakage, right? They've heard of this. They've tried many products out there. It's not like this market is new, right? It's been out there for a very long time. The problem with that is every brand says the same exact thing, right? If you're literally taking the same thing as another brand, you're not going to make it far, unfortunately. Especially in a market where there's literally 8 and 9 figure brands where you're just going in there with $50 budgets, you're not going to compete. You're using the same mechanism as everyone else, and these guys are already dominating it. Or the people have already been used to this claims where they're not going to buy it from you, right? They've already heard every type of approach that you're probably thinking of doing it, and it's not going to work. So you need to come up with a new mechanism. What we mean is molecular repair, peptides, right? So all these make it more believable because it's a new approach on this audience and they haven't heard of it really, as a lot of these brands have done the same thing over and over again. And that's what the good thing about K18 is, right? If you look at it, this product specifically, it's biomedic hair science, right? They're using peptides. So if you go down here in the ingredients, what is K18 peptides, right? It's a biotech developed peptide that mimics hair structure to reverse damage by reconnecting polypeptide chain and the solidified bonds broken during damage from bleach and color. So, we got disclaimers, obviously. But pretty much what they're using is peptides. It's a new mechanism. It's not going to be like rosemary oil. It's not going to be the usual stuff where people are used to it. This is a completely different approach on the same problem, right? They're using a new mechanism, which is peptides. They're talking about how clinically proven to repair from bleach and color chemical service with immediate and lasting results, right? If you scroll down here, they have a whole science behind of it. So they're talking about how a treatment, it basically fits in and reconnects broken polypeptide chains at the molecular level, right? Molecular level is scientific, right? And one way you can understand molecular level stuff is like, PubMed research, clinical studies, right? These are stuff people use to back it up. And I'm assuming they probably have clinical studies on this. Yeah, if you go here, you probably have clinical studies. So yeah, they got clinical studies. You guys can see it right here. They got 4 clinical studies, tests. They have actual, research done, actual studies done that peptides actually help repair it. So they're using it at molecular level, saying like, oh, this actually repairs, your hair molecules. It actually repairs it helps the polypeptide chain. It helps, at molecular level where other products don't reach it, right? Rosemary oil doesn't reach it. And we have evidence and we have proof with clinical studies and human trials that it does reach it. So it's a different mechanism that they're using to solve this problem. Same problem, right? This market's aware of this problem, but they're using a newer mechanism to target the problem. And that's what K18 is doing really well. And you guys need to understand that, if your product is not working, you need to come up with a new approach. Having a better product, for example, does still help you succeed in a sophisticated market. So obviously, if you're selling skincare, supplements, hair care, is that the problem isn't the market doesn't want to buy it, but they've heard the outcomes way too many times. So your job is to find a mechanism that makes your promise believable again. You need to understand, like for example, skincare, right? It's not just clear skin anymore. It targets the bacteria, targets, the barrier, hormonal triggers, right? Behind breakout. Like there is more to it at a higher level where, it's not just like, oh, this just repairs your skin. Like supplements, for example, right? It goes to molecular level, like your mitochondrial function, stability if you're like, dealing with high blood pressure. For example, using, if you're like fatiguing, or if you look at rice, for example, they're saying like, oh, if you're always tired, this and that, always bloated, you have parasites in your stomach. And this product specifically helps you cleanse out the parasites, right? Now that's a different mechanism. It's not about like, oh, if you're tired, take this, it'll give you energy. People have already tried every type of product where they're tired and it's just, it's not working for them. Coffee just doesn't work. But they used a different mechanism on using ingredients to a point where like maybe they didn't even know about it, right? Of having parasites in their body that's stopping them, to actually feel like themselves again. So you guys need to understand that having a market, the market's always getting more expensive. You guys need to understand every year the market's going to get more expensive. So your ads are going to be more expensive, right? People have already been told to about the claims you're already probably making. Every competitor is saying the same thing in most cases, right? Unless they're already understanding marketing and they're understanding how to have a different mechanism into their product. Media buying is not going to be the problem. It's going to come down to creative issue, right? Creative issue, mechanism issue. And you guys need to understand that, you don't have winning products, you have winning creative, you have winning angles, you have winning mechanisms. That's the new approach going into Ecom in 2026 is you need to understand how you can differentiate yourself from other competitors, right? You're not going to be selling the same thing, right? You need to understand direct response, number one. It's super important. If you don't understand this, you're not going to understand your customer really well. You're just selling a product. Right? You don't want to just sell a product, you want to sell an outcome, you want to sell the solving problem solution. You want to sell something where you will change someone's life. You want to sell an approach that has not been already dominated in it. And if it's been dominated, people are already used to it and they're not going to buy your product because, they've already heard it so many times. They're like, I don't want to buy this. I've heard it way too many times. It's just how it is, right? So, for example, we're selling a sleep supplement, right? What competitors really will do is sleep better, right? It's too generic. Everyone will say that, right? Everyone says that, fall asleep in 15 minutes, right? You got, for example, it's stronger, but it's still unbelievable, right? You're having a bigger claim. Support your cortisol rhythm so your body can naturally shift into sleeping. That's a new reason to believe that you could fall asleep earlier. It could be your cortisol rhythm not being proper, right? Just not being proper. A better mechanism, for example, will be targeting, your cortisol, targeting your blood pressure. Maybe it's your blood pressure that the reason you can't sleep properly, right? It makes the mechanism more complete. Now you're targeting, for example, you could take an audience, for example, high blood pressure, right? If these type of audience cannot sleep, we talk about having how high blood pressure could be the reason. And let's say, for example, we're selling beetroot product, right? Beetroot product naturally reduces high blood pressure. And therefore, if you have high blood pressure, it could be the reason why you do not sleep properly. So that's a different mechanism you could take on a product, right? Instead of saying sleep in 15 minutes or saying sleep better on your product, sleep supplement, you take the approach saying like, oh, if you take beetroot, this will help you target, for people who want to sleep better. It speaks to the person, not just the product, right? You want to speak to the person. You want to understand direct response. It's very, very important. And we teach you guys in our community. If you're not in it, I would definitely recommend going to the booking link below. You guys could learn more. Definitely, if you have a brand already, if you have a brand that's fatiguing or not able to hit barriers, you're capped at a barrier, I would definitely recommend, looking into booking a call because we can help you scale. You guys need to understand that it's not your product. Target the problem, right? It's how you target using the product, right? So that's the important thing. And the thing is, you don't always need crazier claims, right? Obviously, the crazier claims you make, and if you can't fulfill it, you're going to have issues on fulfillment, right? People are going to say like, okay, this is bullshit. Like you can't say lose 50 pounds in 3 weeks, right? It's not going to work. Because like people, like for example, like weight loss, right? People will be like, oh, take this product, you lose weight. Now you got, for example, take this product, you lose weight in 2 weeks. And now the bigger claim is going to be what? Take this product and you lose 50 pounds in 2 weeks, right? Now it's unbelievable, right? It's not realistic. And also that goes against a lot of violations, especially on Facebook, right? And, people are going to talk about how, it's bullshit, right? literally just bullshit. You're not going to lose 50 pounds in 2 weeks. It's impossible unless you're doing some other surgeries or something like that, right? It's not realistic. So you don't always need a bigger claim to be successful in the market. The bigger claims you make, the more people are skeptical. The move is to shift from what it does to how it does it. So when the market stops believing the outcome, you sell them behind the outcome. That's very important, and if I was you, I would write that down. Most supplement brands are stuck in two stages. They're making the bigger version of the same claim. One brand says better sleep, another says deeper sleep, another says fall asleep faster, another says wake up refreshed. But the sophisticated brand would target completely different. What is the underlying mechanism that makes this believable? Because once the customer understands the mechanism, it'll be more believable than making bullshit claims. So that's why K18 worked really well, right? They weren't just saying, oh, this helps, hair growth, right? They used a different mechanism by saying like, oh, our peptides actually target at a molecular level to help damage repair, right? We have clinical studies showing how this specific peptide actually does it, and we have proof that it worked on human trials, for example, right? We're not just saying, oh, get your hair grown in 30 days because, rosemary oil worked, right? Obviously, this was something you could have done back in the day where it wasn't sophisticated, but now it's like, people have fallen for this trap so many times. It's like, okay, I've heard this. I heard this too many times. I tried it. It didn't work for me. I'm not going to try it on this brand. But a new approach on this audience, same audience, would be like, okay, I haven't heard of that. I haven't heard about molecular. I haven't heard of peptides. Peptides is something new. I didn't know it was going to repair my hair. Let me look into it and purchase this product, see if it will work for me. There's a really good book on this. You guys could also look at it. It's breakthrough advertising, but pretty much, right? Stage 1 is going to be the direct promise, right? That's the direct promise. Stage 2, where brands make bigger promises, bigger guarantees, bigger claims. Step 3 is where the market gets skeptical. So you need a new mechanism. Step 4 is where competitors start copying, mechanisms. And step 5 is where the market is tired of everything on that product. So, for example, if you're a supplement brand that's struggling to break even, struggling to scale, and you guys are thinking it's the product, it's not the product the issue, it's the market itself, right? They're sophisticated to the point where they don't believe what you're saying is gonna work. The way you rebuild that belief is by making a new mechanism where that claim makes sense. Next time before you make it creative again, or your creative strategist, for example, if you guys are scaling, ask yourself this question. What stage is my market in? What mechanism makes my product believable? Right? If you could answer those 2 questions, then you should know what to do. I hope this video helped you guys out. You shouldn't sell the same thing as another brand, and you shouldn't make a bigger claim from another brand because at some point it's unbelievable, right? At some point where you need to come up with your own unique mechanisms, and you need to understand product research and direct response to actually understand how you could do such things. If you guys have any other questions, let me know, or if you have any other video ideas, let me know in the comments below. I'll definitely make a video on it, but you guys should definitely do some research on actual brands and understand how they're succeeding. And K18 is a really good brand that's doing it right now. See you guys in the next video.